Okay, and we should be recording now. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Isabelle Knight, and I am the middle grade fantasy author of the Enchantria series. And today I have another very special guest with us here today for another author interview. Tracy, welcome to this interview. So glad to have you here.
I'm so happy that you reached out, and I'm really glad to talk to you, a fellow middle grade author.
Yeah. So, thank you so much for being here today. And to start us off, can you introduce yourself, your books, and tell us a bit about how the idea for Thea and the Mischief Makers came about?
All right. So, hi, I'm Tracy Badua. I write middle grade and young adults, so 8 to 12 and then teens and up. My latest book is Ghoul Summer, and my before that I also had, like you said, Thea and the Mischief Makers. And a little bit about this book. It is about Thea, who's right on the front. Um, Thea is excited to join this summer camp where she's doing like a stunt warrior, so like a ninja warrior camp, and then she realizes she's not very good at it and is a little bit upset that she's not very good at it. So it's her trying to figure that out, and then meanwhile accidentally angering a couple of duendes, like Filipino goblins, in her backyard, and possibly dragging their wrath down on her entire neighborhood in the process. So, a little bit, just a couple of things happening in that book.
Yes, I really loved that. And I really, really loved like the duendes. I don't know, like I was always on the edge of my seat, like what would they do next? Oh dear, what disaster is going to happen?
I,
So
I like them too. They were fun to write.
yeah. So, can you tell us a bit about like how you got the idea for this book?
Of course. So I tend to write uh, books with like a little bit of fantasy, so contemporary fantasy. So my first book had, some amulets in it, and then I did some stuff with Filipino like herbs and magic and potions. And then so for this one, I wanted to do duendes, which is something I have some older folks in my family who actually, who do still believe in folklore like duendes living in trees and having to ask permission before you pick fruit or I don't have a lot of anthills where I live, but if you walk by an anthill, you're supposed to like ask permission to walk by it so that the duende that lives there doesn't get angry at you. So when I was trying to come up with ideas for this book, I was like, okay, so let me think back to a lot of these things that growing up that what were these extra layers of magic and like imagination that I grew when I realized later I was like, oh, not everybody believes this. Like what were those? And duendes were always a fun one. And I do actually um on the cover, my wonderful artist did like these like trees on the sides. She did the calamansi trees, and I actually have some in my backyard. So I was like, okay, let's like put those two together and throw them together in this book.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, so that's pretty cool how you sort of like write contemporary fantasy and sort of got the idea by, throwing those two things together. I really love that. And I really loved all of the characters in this book, and I do think that Thea and Dora are two of my favorite characters, and also definitely Evan. So, how do you come up with your characters' personalities?
Well, so when I'm thinking of a story, so I obviously have, that folklore element in mind first of like, okay, I want to do something with duendes. And then, you know, who would they butt heads with? I'd had to come up with a main character, and I decided on Thea, and I wanted it to be a character um that was thrown from being really good at something to not being good at something, because I felt like that's like one of those weird situations that we find ourselves in all the time, where like,
Yes.
okay, I was so good at, you know at running or like at like basketball. Oh, but now in PE we're doing, soccer. Like, oh. So I think that's just like applies in so many situations where like you're really good at something and then you are brand new at something else and you're like, this is not fun. I miss being really good at stuff. So that's kind of what brought me to Thea. But I also wanted to make sure that she had to have like some good friends on her side and some fun. So that's how I got Evan. And I wanted him to be a character that just is very confident in who he is, that he's okay with not being good at everything. And like that's kind of where he and Thea are different, is Thea's not okay with being like bad at stuff. And he's like, whatever, let's do this. I'll fall. I don't care. So
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure she had like that kind of partner in crime for this book.
Yeah, I think Evan and Sia, they really do make like the perfect team. Like, and I especially love Evan's character because, like you said, like he doesn't care about like that, and he's just like, whatever, let's do this. And I just really love that about him. And so, do you have a favorite character in this book, and why would they be your favorite character?
So aside from, I feel like Evan is like a solid, like he's one of my favorites just because it's really fun to write the just those little aspects of his character where like he really loves this like myth the hatch game and like he doesn't care if anyone's like, oh, that's kind of nerdy. He's like, no, you don't understand, there's all these levels, and there's like he's just like really excited about it. But one of the characters that I thought was really fun to write was Dora. As you mentioned, like there's two duendes in this book. There's Dante and Dora, and their brother and sister. And I don't think it's too much of a spoiler, but Dante's like the mean brother, and I guess they're both mean because they're duendes. But Dora's she's a little bit more of like the prankster. She's kind of in it for like the fun of it, and she was fun to write because at some point, like during the story, I had to think of ways of like, all right, so how is Thea gonna solve this? Like, how is she going to be able to get these duendes to stop ruining her life? So I had to give the duendes a little bit different personalities, and that's how like that's why it became a little bit fun trying to write these little differences in Dora versus Dante.
Yeah, and I think Dora was such a fun character to read, and I really do love how she and Thea slowly like get to know each other and all that. And I don't I this probably might be a spoiler, so I probably won't go on into that because I don't
It's
want
okay,
to
it's okay.
spoil anything.
It's been out for like a year, so I feel like you can just say it.
Yeah, that is true though, but I am someone who is a strictly no spoiler person. Like,
Okay.
yeah, like I've had people who have given me spoilers before, and I'm like, how dare you? So yeah,
Oh
I'm
no.
a no
Okay.
spoiler person.
Okay.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I really loved the Twin Days in the story and like all of all of the sort of disasters they kind of cause. And I loved the backstory and depth you also gave them. And so how did you come up with their backstory?
Yeah, so I mentioned that duendes are one of those things that I had relatives who definitely believe that they exist. And um, I had to do some research on it because one of the things that I realized when I was doing research for some of my other books is that like mythology and folklore, even if it's in one country, changes from region to region. So, like for example, with Freddy versus the Family Curse, it was like this amulet that we call unting unting. And like one part of the Philippines believes it does this, but this other part believes it does this. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. Like I need to sort it out. And so I had to do that. I had to do that for the Duendes too, to make sure that I wasn't it's fiction, so you can definitely expand on what their powers are. You can kind of switch it up a little bit, but I want to stay true to like duendes being pranksters. So I did a little bit of research to figure out what like what people would blame duendes for. And it would be
Yeah.
things like taking shoes or like stealing car keys or things like that. There are a couple of YouTube videos where people are like, oh, look, there's a duende. And you see like a blur. So those do exist. So I, had just did a little bit of research to see like, all right, how close can I get to the idea of what a duende is so that I can, then the choices that I make from there are purposeful so that if I decide to go a different direction, it's because I wanted to, as opposed to like, oh, I just didn't know that they did this.
Yeah, definitely. And so like did like the Duendes like did their characters turn out differently than what you'd first imagined? And if so, how?
Yes, yes, they actually did. Because they're pranksters. And originally I had them both pretty mean and maybe even more like on the evil side. Um, but I don't know. Like I think that was a lot less not fun to write, but it was a lot like it wasn't what I was going for. Is like obviously Thea doesn't want her neighborhood destroyed. But I also wanted to make sure that there was some lightness and some fun in the book. So I didn't want like really scary evil duendes like stalking her at every turn. So I wanted to make sure that they that there was some like fun and a little bit of like mischief as opposed to like straight up evil because like that wasn't the kind of story I was writing. So they did change. I was like I realized very quickly as I was writing, I was like, oh, I need to make them a little bit more fun and a little bit more likable because at some point like things are gonna happen and like allies will like be made and things like that. So
Yeah, and I am kind of glad that in the end you didn't make like the Duendes like on the edge of evil because I think the Duendes like they're a bit I don't know like they're not quite evil. They have this really like they're not just out to I don't know like wreck the town just for the sake of it. Like they have a
mhm.
reason, they have a backstory, and I
Yeah.
also yeah, and like if I do feel like if the Duendes were like on the edge of evil in the final published books, then I probably might not have liked Dora that much. And
Right, right. It's
I
like
did really love Dora's character, so
I like her too. I like her too. I'm really I'm a lot I think the way the characters formed in the end were like just what they needed to be for it to work.
yeah, I agree because I'm a pantser, so I don't really plan, and when I write, I I would like to let the story just flow and just let the story go its own way because if I don't know, but for me, every single time it always turns out much better than what I had originally planned if I just let the story go off and do its own thing, even though it's kind of a lot of the times kind of hard to do that because I have a brain that wants to be in control all the time.
That's so interesting because I feel so I'm very much a plotter. Like I'm very much like spreadsheets and plotting things. And this was one of those like situations though where I think that little bit of like pantser was like, no, your characters want to do this. And if you keep trying to write the plot that you want, like it's not gonna work. So I was like, all right, I'll let go of that control like just a little bit.
Yes. So, what was your favorite part about writing this book?
Um, oh man, I think my favorite part was like the research of it. Okay, so it is fiction. So there's duendes. So I had to do the research of the duendes. She does Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which I do not do. And I always have to tell people this during school visits so they don't like try to surprise me with moves. I was like, I don't do this. But my brother does. So like he was like, I kind of stole that inspiration from like, oh, okay, let me put into the book. Um, and then so I like had to research a little bit of that and like ask him some questions to be like, okay, is this accurate? Like for her age, like what would the kids be able to do? That kind of thing. I had to watch a lot of Ninja Warrior to figure out like what would the obstacle course be like? Like would they be jumping? Would they be like tumbling and leaping? Things like that. So that was a lot of fun. But one of my favorite things was also just making up the game that uh, Evan is in love with, like the Mytho Hatch game, where it's just like this idea of like a card game, and all of like instead of Pokemon, it's all these like mythological creature kind of thing. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's pretty cool that you did have a brother who actually that you do have a brother who actually does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because that would definitely make things a lot easier for research because I have had books where I had to research things and like I don't know, like there's some things like in writing you need like the really specific details to make this world come alive. And
Yeah.
on I Google just no, like no, that it is very hard to find those things on Google. Like I have tried and like just ask this very 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 specific question about this very tiny detail and just no.
And then like 3 hours later, you're like nowhere closer. You're like, okay, I'll just take this out.
Oh my gosh, yes, because I do that all the time. Like I will research this and there'll be like no answers, then I'll go down a rabbit hole of research for 45 minutes until I'm like, never mind, I'll just take this out. Yeah. So, technically, you have already answered this question, which is, are you a plotter or a pantser? So, so like the second part of the question was like, why are you like a plotter? So,
Yeah. I when I very, very, very first started trying to write fiction, I wanted to be a pantser. I love that idea of being able to like sit down, just like go for it. And then I very quickly realized like my brain does not work that way. Especially because like I sometimes only have like half an hour to write, or I only like I have to pick it up like, you know, before bed, and I like try to, write something really quick, or I have to write in little tiny bits and pieces. And in order to do that, I need to have like a plan. So that I can look at my notes real quick and be like, oh, okay, that's what I was trying to do this chapter. Let me keep going. So that's kind of what led to me being a plotter, is because I couldn't trust my brain to remember like what was supposed to happen next. And it does help to keep me like on track and keep things flowing. So, I get questions a lot about like, how do you get over writer's block? I was like, the good part about outlining and plotting things out is that you get rid of that writer's block before you have written 40,000 words. Is like you've written it out and been like, oh, that can't work in that chapter because how would they even get there? So there's little things that at least you can smooth along the way. So yeah, I'm a plotter.
yeah, that is true. Like, I am a pantser, and I have tried plotting before, and I actually tried doing that with my work in progress, and I had like this very detailed spreadsheet and all that. And then I just started, and I was going like, this is not right. I kept writing it, and it's just not right. And I had to let the story do its own thing because I don't know, for me, it's always better than how my brain imagines it because my brain is a control freak.
See there, and I could see where that would work better, like if you just put it straight on the paper, and so you already knew what it looked like because you just created it, versus like, oh, I have to fit it in this like frame that I made. Like I could see that being tough.
Yes, that is true. So, I also really loved your book, The Takeout, and it is one of my favorites of your books, along with Thea and the Mischief Makers. And could you tell us a bit about that book and how you got the idea for it?
Sure. So the takeout is about a girl who has a Filipino Indian fusion food truck, or her family has a food truck. She's like not old enough to own a whole business, but her family has a Filipino Indian fusion food truck. And uh, a pair of celebrity chefs move into town with a like this brand new restaurant and suspiciously similar recipes, and she has to try to figure out if they stole from the truck and then what to do about it. So that is what the takeout is about.
Yeah, I really loved that book. It was such fun to read. And so what was your favorite part about writing that book?
Gosh, so this is my favorite part was writing. See, I like writing the bad guys of stories because it's always so funny to see like how are they bad? Like it's always so fun. It's always fun to figure out like how are they going to be evil in this story because you got to be evil in creative ways. Um, but I also really liked writing the food parts. But I will admit, I'm not really good at cooking, so a lot of this is just like my imagination. I'd be like, "Wow, it would be really great if somebody made these dishes," and then I would like write it down. So, I think it was just a really fun book to write, and I think other than the villains, and I don't want to spoil everything, but other than the villains, I think writing the food stuff was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I love writing the villains as well. Like they're always so fun and I can just I don't know, like brainstorm some evil plans for my characters and just want
Yes,
some
because they can
disasters that are going to happen to them.
because their job is to cause problems, and then it's like, oh no, now I have to figure out how to fix it. It's like that's
Yes.
your main character's problem. They'll figure that out.
Yes, that's true. And also, I really did love like all of like the food in the takeout. All of them sounded super cool and I know maybe someday someone, I don't know, might read this book and actually make the recipes in real life.
I would love that, and I would love them to like casually invite me over so I could try the
Yes, that yeah.
food.
Like I wish I could do that and like just trying to make all of these recipes in this book because they sound so cool, but I'm I'm not that I don't know how to cook at all. Like
Right. Right. I was like, there are things I'm good at, and cooking, I will admit, like cooking is not one of them. I will leave that to the pros. Like I will do best what like with the writing and the typing. I'll do that.
yeah, I mean maybe someday when I'm older I shall learn to cook and be a master chef and
I
then
know.
make all the
Exactly.
recipes. And so you have also co-written the Cookie Crumbles, which is like this mystery book, which also has a lot about baking in it, which I loved because I love baking. And so you've co-written that with Alechia Dow, and I really loved that book. And what made the two of you decide to co-write, and what was the process of co-writing that book like?
Alicia and I have been friends for a really long time. We have been like writing partners for or writing buddies for a long time. We met on like a critique partner match on Twitter way back when. So we would send each other like chapters and like, what do you think about this? And what do you think about this? And we've just like way before we were published, like we were trying to figure out like how to write books together. So it was nice when she finally was like, hey, maybe we should write something together. And the idea that we had, once we kind of sketched it out, we're like, you know what, this feels kind of middle grade. This feels like it would be younger kids. It wouldn't be young adult. Like we were trying to figure out where it would be. And then from there, we got on a call and was like, okay, so what are these kids going to do? And we would just throw ideas back and forth. And it was a lot of fun. And then she would write a chapter, kick it over to me. I would write a chapter, kick it back to her. So it was just kind of like, I don't know. It felt really fun and kind of like a game where it's like, all right, what did she write? Now I have to solve what she wrote and then like write something else. So that was a ton of fun. Um, and that was, I have to say, that was the first book we wrote together. Was a little bit tricky because I am an intense plotter, as we just talked about. And so trying to do that, but also be flexible and write with someone else, I struggled with it. So I would like secretly like create an outline on the side while we were writing, just so like I could keep track with things. And I showed her later. I showed her after, like when we were like, all right, we're ready to revise. Here are all of these notes I've made. She's like, okay, good. But it worked well because I think by then we had already um, we knew how each other worked and we knew how each other like what our writing style was like. So that was a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, I can bet. And like, I would love to co-write a book with someone someday, but I also feel like if I tried that, it would be chaos. Like co-writing a, yeah, like it would be so much fun, but also now you have like two people writing a book, and like I think for me, it would just be chaos, especially since a lot of my friends, like, I don't know, like, if I feel like if you put the two of us together and we co wrote a book, it would be chaos. Like,
it's I we were pleasantly surprised it worked. And that we didn't become mortal enemies by the end of it. We're like, oh, we're still friends. This is great. That's nice.
yeah. Okay, so, the another question I have is a slightly sneaky question I ask all writers just for the fun of it, and that is, do you have a secret pen name that nobody knows about?
I do not. I do not. Um and then that's on purpose because I am Filipino American, and I really wanted to make sure that like I had my name and like my family's name on my books. So I, threw that on there very proudly. And then yeah, and then I think like later everyone was like, "Oh, you didn't do a pen name?" I was like, "Wait, were we supposed to do pen names?" And I was like, "Oh, no, it's fine. It's fine." Like I'm still happy to have my name on it. I was like, "Oh, I didn't realize like people were doing that." But I think if I ever wanted to switch and write something completely different, like again, I write very like lighthearted middle grade and young adult. If I wanted to write like really gory like horror books or something, I would probably do a pen name just so nobody would accidentally pick it up and be like, "Oh, I'm expecting delightful duendes," and like, "Oh no."
Yeah. And I actually have like spoken to some authors before, and they do not want a pen name because like they have worked so hard on this book, they have worked so hard on this story. Like
Yeah.
like I need my name on that cover.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. Although I myself I do write under a pen name. Like Isabelle Knight is a pen name.
I think it makes sense for a lot of folks, and I am yeah I am of the like we worked really hard for this, we're gonna do it.
I was more of like an at the beginning I was like I wish to remain perfectly anonymous.
I like it. I like it.
Which it didn't turn out according to plan because, as you can see, I'm not really anonymous. Like, no one knows my real name, but
You should have started doing interviews in like masks.
that would
Keep the
be so
mystery.
hilarious.
It's fine.
That'd be so hilarious, and it might, I know, it might creep out a few authors who do
Maybe,
interviews.
maybe.
Like, you just show up to this interview to chat about your book,
Yeah, it's
and then the
literally like a
interviewer shows up
person
with
with
like
a
this jury mask in a dark room.
right. You're like, nope, interview over, like leave.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and this is the final question, which I also ask every single writer I meet. And that is, what's your advice for young writers or not so young writers who are just starting out and really want to get their work out into the world?
Ooh. So, I I feel like one of the things that really leveled up my writing was sharing my work with like a fellow writer. So with like Alechia, for example, because um, that having somebody else read your work, like I think takes a lot of like bravery. Like I had to really psych myself up to be able to be like, all right, can you read this and tell me if it's terrible? Um, but like it A shows that you're serious about it. And like that's really awesome that you have some like writing friends. So like it shows that you're serious about it. And it also means that like, you know, you're getting reader feedback. You're learning what goes in a story. You're learning what readers expect from a story. And like all of that kind of like every bit of it helps. Um, so I would really say like, try to find writers who are in similar places in your writing career, if that makes sense. Like you don't have to write the same exact thing. Like if somebody writes like really light middle grade, or somebody writes really like dark horror something, like you can still read each other's stuff, but it's like if you're in the same phase of like I'm just starting out versus like I'm like 10 books in, like I think there's a lot you can still learn from each other, but it's just like it's nice to have some writing partners here and there.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think it is very important to, share your work. And, once you get published, you will have to share your work anyways.
Yeah.
That's kind of the
That's
definition
true.
of
That's
being
the
published. And
goal.
so I feel like you might as well share your work now. I don't know, get used to people reading it and also get feedback so that when you actually like share it out in the world, it's not terrible.
I know. That's true. That's true. It's like if that's the ultimate goal, it's like you're gonna have to do this eventually. You might as well have somebody let you know if you have a character that goes missing halfway through the book because you forgot about it. So
Oh my gosh, that happened to me. Actually, I didn't really fix it. I mean, not quite. Like, it's not a plot hole because I did like wrap up her character arc. Like, she
there
is fine,
you go.
but she just doesn't appear for the rest of the series because she was only important to book
Yeah.
two. But actually, she was still around. But she never. I don't believe she made an appearance in like books three and
You know,
four.
these characters have other things to do. They're like, I'm done.
Yeah, I
I'm gonna
agree.
go, do some other stuff now. I'm gonna go garden. Like, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And so those are all of the questions I have for this interview. Tracy, thank you so much for being here and agreeing to do this interview. It was super fun getting to talk to you and ask you all of these questions about your books. And now you have now given me this idea in the back of my head for doing an interview and just showing up in a I probably won't
Warn
do
the
it, but it will.
person before. You have to warn them before.
Yeah, probably. Otherwise, you're going to be, what is this? End the call now. I'm running
Right.
away. Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. This was a ton of fun. Thanks so much for reaching out, and I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you read my books and like them.
Yeah, I read almost all of your middle grade books. And
Oh,
actually,
thank
no, not
you.
almost, actually. Pretty much all of them.
Okay. No, thank you.
Yeah, and thank you guys for watching this interview. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this interview, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and also definitely do not forget to check out Tracy's amazing books. They are fantastic. You should read them all.
Good advice.
Yeah. So, Tracy, again, thank you so much for doing this interview. And, thank you to all the viewers for watching this. And I suppose I shall see you in the next video. Right, bye. And we're going to